Hello again, Struck. Well, today I'm bringing you another build video for Torchlight 3's early access, and this one is for the Dusk Mage class. It's kind of a setup of trying to get a light based build, but of course you still have to have some dark skills to build up those buff bars. I've decided to call this the Piercing Light Dusk Mage build. The timestamps are also in the description if you want to skip to certain segments. So for this build I decided to get the major spammy skill be Absolver, or later when we get an Arc of Light item to change Absolver for Holy Bolt, which with the Arc of Light has a 50% chance when casting Holy Bolt to cast Absolver. For building the light buff bar we are using Dark Spears with its damage over time mechanic that builds it quickly, and Energy Spike as another source of secondary DPS, plus building of the white bar to help make it quicker along with Dark Spears. So Energy Spike and Absolver our main sources of Conal AoE damage, and when we're using Holy Bolt and proccing Absolver, we're gonna have some better single target while still spamming the AoE. I also suggest using 3 specific pieces of the Celestial set. First the Gauntlets, bread and butter for any Dusk Mage build if they want DPS. Then I'm suggesting using the boots to help with mana regeneration when using cooldown skills, such as your teleport or dark spears, or when they fix Energy Spike. Then I'm suggesting to use the helmet for +2 dark skills. And why not the chest or legs? Because I think it's better to use blue ones there. More about that in the gear segment. And then you wanna be using the Skittering Shoulders for survivability, for that 50% damage reduction. Apart from the Arc of Light, you wanna be looking for Ebon Grasp that boosts Energy Spike, Power Conduit that boosts Dark Spears, and Egg of Wonder to boost our Relic Active Skill to cast second one. For the skills segment for this build regarding what to take, first I'm gonna show you what I've got right now at level 35, and keep in mind you would be seeing on the side a suggested 35 and a suggested 60 setup without any set bonuses like +1, +2 skill levels, and maybe I can show you also another one for level 60 with some set bonuses from the helmet. I only suggest helmet, you're gonna find out why in the gear segment. So 6 points Holy Bolt, 6 points White Spear, 10 points Absolver. Then you want tier 2, so 6 points Shadow Step, and you want 6 points Energy Spike. The rest would be like 1 remaining point in Dark Spears if you don't have the +2 dark skills levels. Right now I'm getting 2 extra skills here, and this ends up being 7, so this needs only to be 4 for me, and this one ends up being 6 from the 4, so that's another 2 points I could have removed, and then I removed some points here and made this just a tier 2 with 4 points. But yeah, that's what you would want. Ideally 6 points here, 6 points here, 6 points in those two, 10 points in this one, and this one would probably be the remaining 1 point at 35. At 60 you're gonna see the setup later, but eventually you wanna max this one out, you wanna max this one out, you wanna max this one out. And you probably want to max this one out. I mean, 4 charges, pretty nice, and with the changes that would be coming to this setup. On the side you would also be able to see some of the changes that would be coming to the setup. I'm gonna quickly talk about them. First, Holy Bolt tier 1 bonus is now gonna be the tier 3 bonus, and the tier 3 bonus would be the tier 1 bonus. So this tier 3 bonus moving into tier 1 means that every third cast fires a large bolt, but it won't do double damage. It's gonna be doing 150% of the damage. So if you do 100 damage with this skill, the tier 3 right now would do 200, but with the changes it would be doing 150. And White Spear now heals you for 3% per enemy hit with it. This is changing. This would be 20%, but only with the first enemy it hits. I think it's a much better balance, because right now it's pretty strong if you have a lot of enemies, but if you have just a single enemy like a boss fight, it's pretty underwhelming. So that's pretty nice. With 2 charges you can easily heal up 40% HP when you hit the boss, for example. So that's another change worth mentioning. There's other changes that might be worth keeping in mind when you're doing that build, so those should be on the side as some text. I'm not gonna talk about everything, but keep in mind, yeah, there are changes, and there's gonna be even more changes eventually. The best thing I want to talk about is energy spike now does 10 spikes instead of 5 while dark charged with anti-shotgunning in place, and there's an extra wave of 5 light spikes. If white charged, those will also hit, so 2 times the hits. Also increased the chaotic pathing for missiles. Pretty nice, pretty fun. Also Shadow Step is gonna get its teleport range increased, so that's some good things to keep in mind about the patch coming on Tuesday the 30th of June. So eventually you're probably gonna be maxing out other things, such as maybe Luminous Run if you like that, Relic Active Skill damage on your way to level 60. You might want to max out this crit chance for white skills, you might want to get crit chance for dark skills, you might want to get dark skill damage as well when you go to level 60, and even Relic Active Skill cooldown if you want to go to level 60. So you can get some various things, but the skeleton is this what I'm using right now, and I'm using an item with +2 dark skill levels to have the level of dark spears I do without without sacrificing other things. So enough for the skills, let's move on to the pet and pet skills. For the pet and pet skills, some of those, like those two, I think might not be dropping much on the current pets in the game. People told me that they could get this, but it's broken, so this is what I suggest. I would suggest get Screeching Stun or get Immobilize, whichever you think works better. Deadlier Strikes is my preferred aura of choice, but if you do have a lot of crit chance from items and you don't think you need it, you can go for maybe Bok Chance if you wanna max it to 40 and for example you have 30 from your set and you don't wanna wear a shield, or you can even go for extra defense. Of course, if you have running partner, that's a great alternative, but you can only have one aura and most people prefer Deadlier Strikes. I love Healing Friendship, I think it's a must have, it's extra healing, so it works great. And then here most people prefer Battle Cry, some people prefer Defensive Posture, but that's kind of how I do it. Now let's talk about the relics. The relic of choice for me is an Electrode for this build. I think it's a good synergy, since we're not going for a summoner build, we're going for a more DPS oriented, and now with the changes that are coming to Bane and to some other relics, there are some options that you could probably experiment with. Maybe use a Flaming Destroyer or use the Ice Relic to keep enemies away from you. It's up to you what you might want to do, but my suggestion is get an Electrode and then while leveling save the first 10 points or save the first 5 points and then spend them here. Then the next 5 points to max out this cooldown, so you can have something to spam every now and then in the early levels. Then eventually as you go you might want to get those 10 points next. And then get those 10 points next. Once you've got 10, 10, 10, the next 10 points I would suggest going for Violent Burst to do more damage for that, and then eventually Unleashed Energy. So that's gonna be your 50 points with my ideal suggestion. But some of you might want to be activating this more often and might want to, instead of putting points here, to put some more points here. So to keep like something like this, if you want. That's also good if you have enough relic cooldown, not relic active skill but relic cooldown. Yeah, of course, that's a good alternative, so keep that in mind. Enough about the relic. Now let's move on to showing you the items I suggest using. The items I suggest using are kind of interesting. Some of you may not agree with what I would say, but for now keep in mind I'm not wearing the perfect items, and there are some stats that you might want to look for in a build, and I will list those stats. But first let's talk about items and then talk about stat rows. So number one item priority would be Celestial Gauntlets. If you don't have them, start gambling, start saving coins, gold coins, and start from as early as you can to gamble for gauntlets until you get them. This would help your leveling, and even if you're using a low level gauntlet at a high level and lose some defense, it's still gonna be great damage. This thing, when you're Holy and Unholy Charged, gives you 100% increased damage. Yes, you get a 200% increased damage actually with the set bonus. So you get 200% increased damage and 100% increased mana cost. It's totally worth it because the damage you're doing makes up for the mana cost increase. And even with the one-handed weapon, but you might want to use it with a two-handed weapon, you're gonna be doing some nice, amazing damage. So get that and get two more celestial pieces. The two celestial pieces I would suggest would be the boots for mana regen. It really helps deal with this increased mana cost. And if you're using Shadow Step tier 2, and if you're using that Mana Infused, you can see you can even stack it. 2 stacks only, you can't get more. This one right now doesn't proc Mana Infused, so hopefully it starts proccing Mana Infused soon. The same way Dark Spears and Shadow Step does. And then the other thing I would suggest would be a Celestial Mask. Why the mask and not the chest or the legs or the shoulders? Because for the shoulders I would suggest the Skittering Shoulders, which I can show you because I never got them and they're not in the Legendarium. The Skittering Shoulders gives you 50% damage reduction field, a big field, roughly I think around this size. So while you're standing in there for 15 seconds you get 50% damage reduction, and if you have 3 skittering pieces that's gonna be 30 seconds, but I don't suggest using Skittering Shoulders with 2 more Skittering pieces. I suggest using blue armor and blue legs. So for example, if your weapon is doing electric damage, you would want an armor or legs that give you flat damage or bonus to electric damage in percentages. So this one boosts my DPS a lot. Well, not that much right now, because this is a one-handed weapon, but if it was a two-handed weapon that would have been a very good bonus. And you can still see I get some nice DPS, and you can see I get this one, so that's my DPS without those. Whether you want to prioritize flat or percent, that depends. If you're using a one-handed weapon, you probably would want 1 flat and 1%, or 2 flats. If you're using two-handed weapon, you might wanna consider using 2 items with percent damage. It's gonna be probably impossible to get a flat damage and a percent damage, but keep in mind those don't seem to be dropping on legendary items unless they change this. So you would ideally want something like this that gives you the flat damage of your weapon, the same flat damage that your weapon does, and then you would want a percent damage. Or you would want 2 times the percent damage. It's entirely optional, and I've been experimenting a lot with this and I've been checking whether those blue legs would give me more damage than the celestial legs, which give me 50% more effectiveness on the dark buff. And what does this mean? This means by default the dark buff gives you 50% more damage. With this leg armor, the dark buff gives you 75% more damage, so 50% of the 50, so 25 more. I tested it and I figured out when using a one-handed weapon and a shield, and I was using, for example, 10% ice damage on my leg armor, and I didn't have any ice damage on my chest. I was still having better DPS with the blue 10% ice damage legs versus the celestial when unholy charged. So I did the testing and I can tell you that probably the meta at level 60, unless they add those flat damage and percent damage bonuses, seems to be blue items on the chest and legs, unless you really want +2 light skill levels on the chest and just decide to sacrifice the legs. And yeah, again, for the shoulders you would want the skittering, so hopefully that helps you figure out what you want. For the pet I would suggest the one with bartering. So let's go to the Legendarium now to show you some items. The one with bartering for the pet seems to be the one that's really useful for farming, where the pet returns from town 90% faster. Another thing that's probably nice is invigoration. It doesn't seem too bad. And some of the novas are also not bad because they're gonna be improving the pet aggro range to be a little bit bigger. Egg of Wonder is a good item. I would suggest using it as well, and something that is a must-have in my opinion for this build, for the way I want it. I haven't tested it, but I'm pretty sure that's gonna be the OP version of this build, to be using Holy Bolt instead of Absolver, but to have 50% chance to cast Absolver when using Holy Bolt. So what's gonna happen is, here I'm gonna have my Holy Bolt, and I'm gonna be spamming Holy Bolts, and every now and then 50% chance instead of Holy Bolt it would be casting my upgraded Absolver. And people confirm that things like that work by casting the upgraded version of the skill rather than the basic version with 0 upgrades. So since I have this upgrade to do 5 missiles, that means the Holy Bolt would be casting the 5 missiles of Absolver. Now, as I promised, I'm gonna tell you some stats that I think are worth getting. First of all, flat damage. Amazing, good, nice. Then damage to light skills and damage to dark skills. I don't think I can show you that right now. But yeah, damage to light skills, percent damage that is, to white skills and to dark skills. Then as I said, that percent poison, percent fire, percent ice, percent electric damage. Then HP is good, and then defense. And what's changing with defense is items like this one would not be able to get poison defense, electric defense, fire defense as a base. The base would always be non-elemental, but the thing is you would be able to get much higher numbers in the elemental defense if it rolls at the secondary stats, at the stats in the second box. For example, here where I have 183 defense, 84 health regen, etc. If I do get poison defense there, it would be giving me much more than it does give now, but I would not be able to get poison defense where it says 432. There I would only be able to get the regular defense. I'm trying to give you some sort of an example, but I guess I don't have items like that to show you right now. But yeah, that's kind of a nice change. I'm pretty big fan of that change. Let's talk about some more stats you might want to look after. Crit chance, crit damage, of course, amazing stats. I think the cap on crit chance is 100%, the cap on crit damage is 300%. Relic Active Skill cooldown is nice, Relic cooldown is nice, Mana regeneration is amazing, especially for builds like this where you're stacking different sources of mana regeneration. Then chance to burn, poison, shock, bleed. I think chance to shock goes very well with using electrode. If you're using a different relic, well, get the chance to do that element. Burning for the destroyer, poison for the bane, bleed for the blood drinker, and ice for the ice relic for the Cold Heart. A chance to swow would only give you extra 10 damage versus swow. The same goes for stunned and blinded, and you can actually swow enemies with dark spears, so you don't even need to bother with chance to swow. It should be something that you're not prioritizing. I think that's pretty much it. Feel free to ask me some more if something was missing or something was not clear. Leave a comment or ask me over at Discord and we can talk more about gear and synergies. Now let's move on to showing you some more gameplay. Here we are at the segment where I show you more gameplay. I talk about some of the ways I rotate the build. In this case, the rotation is not that difficult. Basically, if you wanna start with using your relic activation, do so. And then you would probably wanna lead with dark spears to start as soon as possible proccing those spears, hitting and building that light buff bar. Then maybe follow up quickly with the energy spike to use its cooldown, and when it's fixed to proc that mana regeneration from the boots. And then use Dark Spear, not Dark Spear but Light Spear 2 times and start spamming Absolver. When needed, teleport 1 or 2 times to either proc the buff or to just get away from danger. But pay attention to your charges. You would only have to, I'm currently using an item that gives me another charge because I don't have anything better in the Legendarium, but eventually you're only gonna have 2 until you level it up to level 10 Shadow Step to have more charges. So at the first few levels you're not gonna be that OP with the spamminess of the teleports. You can see the damage then adds up as soon as we build up the light and dark buff. The damage becomes pretty strong even in this zone, which is level 30 zone, where my gear I think is capped at like 32 or 33. I have done 17,000 with mediocre items. So keep that in mind. This would be able to do a lot of damage on bosses, and just in a moment you would be able to see boss fight at around level 35-36, and here it is. Let's just let you watch that one for now. If you wanna get notified for more content about this game or others like it, or various different types of RPGs, say RPGs, tactical RPGs, all sorts of RPGs, or other types of looters, you could subscribe to my channel, get that bell button clicked to not miss those notifications. Thanks again for watching the video, folks. Keep it cool, and until next time, goodbye.